Hey, what's up, Vox and Hops heads? I'm Matt, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops podcast, brought to you by Sound Talent Media, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians to talk about their lives, music, and craft beer. It's Friday, people. We did it, and this is Vox and Hops episode number 199. Do you know what that means? That means that this coming Tuesday, the Heavy Montreal Presents Vox and Hops episode is my 200th episode. And I am super stoked about that. I can't believe that I'm already at 200 episodes. It feels like yesterday that I started Vox and Hops. I am so lucky that I've had the chance to sit down and conduct 200 interviews with amazing artists from across the globe, sharing incredible brews and sharing even better stories. I am truly humbled, amazed, and I am just so stoked to see where the next 100 Vox and Hops episodes take the podcast. But the podcast would be nothing without all of you listeners at home, the Vox and Hops heads. I truly, truly appreciate you. Thank you so, so much for listening, talking about the podcast, and sharing it with like-minded people. You are what makes Vox and Hops work. On today's episode, I am with Mark Osborne of Adroit Theory Brewing. Here it is, people. This is Vox and Hops, episode number 199.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Today I'm with Mark Osborne of Adroit Theory, the amazing brewery from Purcellville, Virginia. I love having chats with metal brewers, and if there is anyone as metal as you, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people try to be, but you guys have been blowing me away with everything that I've been seeing happening. How are you doing, Mark? Let's start with a easy yet complex question. How have you been coping with 2020?
Well, we just take it one sip at a time.
What is that there, Mark?
It's been a fun year. Believe it or not, actually, it's actually, there's obviously some challenges and some scary, things that have happened. And I will tell you that that late March, early April was like, yikes. But it's actually turned out to be a very, very good year for us in terms of growth and popularity and customers and community. We're actually very jazzed at how things have worked themselves out.
And it's something that was very scary at the beginning of the pandemic was how are these local craft beer breweries going to survive? I am from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and here in Quebec, breweries are not allowed to mail to their customers, whereas you guys in the States are allowed to do that. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are obviously some limitations for sure. It's not as liberal as it is, say, in Europe, where they can ship it, pretty much anywhere. But it's been very good for us. We actually got a shipper's license in Virginia, where we're based, like the day we started the brewery 6.5 years ago. So we were very comfortable already shipping beer. So when our tasting room got shut down and people were freaking out, we just kind of ramped up that side of the business, and it's worked out very well. So
awesome. That's good that you guys had that all set up, and you guys can can on your own, I assume, and just instead of pumping it into kegs, you're just shooting into cans and selling as much as you can.
That's basically the gist of it.
Awesome. What are you drinking on your side there? And I believe I have the same one here. Tell everyone what that is. I will showcase this beautiful can art.
All right, cool. Yeah, this is a beer just dropped about 2 weeks ago called Now I Am Death, Destroyer of Worlds. Obviously based on the Oppenheimer quote of a similar name. It is a Hazy Triple IPA, clocking in at 10%. Extremely hazy, extremely juicy. It's on the more tropical end of the spectrum versus citrusy, but it has, as we almost always try to do, a little bit, very, very small in this particular beer, but I always love it when it has a little bit of a dank undertone to it, to kind of counterbalance all of the, orange juice-like qualities.
Damn right.
See.
Cheers. It smells amazing.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yes. Super dangerous.
Be careful with that.
Absolutely delicious. Nice and juicy. And slightly dank. It's got just a little bit. Very creamy. Really, really, absolutely, totally delicious. And you would never guess that it was 10% ABV. Absolutely beautiful. Take me back to your brewer story. How exactly did you end up brewing metal beers, Mark?
Well, as with everything in life, it was never, the intent, uh, to start a metal themed brewery. I just knew I wanted to do something, kind of cutting edge and boundary pushing, envelope pushing. So when I formulated the idea of starting the brewery back in 2011, 2012, the scene in Virginia was, basically non-existent or in its infancy. There was only maybe 20 breweries in the entire state. They all basically made the same thing. Nobody was making the adventurous types of beers that I like drinking from other breweries. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do it ourselves? Why don't we just make it here? So, the idea of the types of beers we make was easy. And then in terms of the theme and the art and the general motif is that I just made things that I loved. You know what I mean? Like I'm into dark art, you know what I mean? And I love buying albums and looking at the liner notes and the album cover, and hopefully it's a gatefold cover, and I open that up and I'm like, yes. And while you're listening to the music, you're absorbing the art. And so, from day one, I knew we wanted to spend time and energy to make the outside of the package look and feel as interesting and tasty as it was on the inside of the package. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and it's totally what caught my attention with you guys. I'll admit it, on Instagram. I followed a bunch of breweries that I could, and as soon as I started seeing these, you know, extreme, basically, it could be like a black metal album cover art, a bunch of cans coming out, and on top of that, it's pure haze goodness. It was like a 2-for-1 banger. It was like I have to find out who these people are, and I have to talk to them. So, but I want to go back even farther, Mark. Why do you brew beer? Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I think, me personally, and first of all, let me just clarify, I'm not the brewer. I have, a team of brewers that work for me, and they are awesome and they do great stuff. I spend a lot of time working and helping develop recipes and ideas. But at the end of the day, they're the ones, manually making everything that we produce. But I mean, my guess is my journey is probably very similar to a lot of your listeners and yourself. You drink cheap beer when you're in high school and you go off to college, and it's even cheaper beer. But for me, I did a studies abroad program, and I was in England, and I got turned on to cask beer and drinking what was imports here, there, and I was like, wow, this is so much better. And I got home, and that evolutionary process, right? The Sierra Nevada Pale Ale turns into, you know, and it's this slippery slope. And next thing you know, you're traveling all over the country, visiting breweries and going on, beer cruises and beer vacations and, festivals. And you can never get enough. And yeah, and then you start a brewery.
And it was always metal at first, because there are a few metal breweries throughout the states, but you starting at 6.5 years ago, there was much less of them than there are now. I see you're wearing a True Brewing hoodie. They are one of the best metal themed breweries in the states, in my opinion, up there with Three Floyds. Who else do you think was up there with you when you started this? Where did you draw that inspiration from?
I mean, obviously, Three Floyds is the OG, and the guys from True had just started maybe a year before we did. Met them at CBC. Burial was a big influence. We actually, one of our first collaborations we ever did was with them, and we definitely, I think, have some similarities and synergies in terms of how they do things. And then obviously, the new school people that have come up. I think it's been, very awesome and very cool, and there's um, good beer being made and being done in a way that, people can rock out to, I think is a good deal.
I know that in the band world, we are very excited when we see our brothers in the same genre doing well, but there's always that little bit of internal competition where we wish it was us. When I see my friends going on tours, and I'm like, why the fuck did they get that tour? But that's fucking awesome, and I'm super stoked for them. But why wasn't it me? Is it like that in the metal brewer world, or is it pure collaboration?
I mean, I think you know how it is with the metal scene in general. So you're outsiders from the get go. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's always us versus them, and there's so few of them. Even if there were 100 in the U.S., which there's not, that would still be just a drop in the bucket of how many breweries there are. So you usually have a lot of things in common. So, like for instance, we've done the Decibel magazine Metal and Beer Fest. I think 4 times now, and it's the same guys. You know what I mean? Like they bring in some new people, but like there's True, there's Burial, there's Three Floyds, there's Wake. You know what I mean? There's Broken Goblet. There's you know Brimming Horde Meadery. You know what I mean? And you're like, hey, how are you? You know, what's going on? You know, and it's just you have something in common. You have something to talk about. You know, while you drink a beer and enjoy the show.
Absolutely. And what really defines a metal brewery from a different brewery? You say you feel like outsiders. Is it just the artwork, or does it go deeper into the personalities of the people making the beer?
Well, I mean, I think a little bit of both. I mean, I know my first time going to True, it was like, oh, you walk in the door, the place is literally painted black on the ceiling and on the walls and on the floor, and there's like a coffin with beer taps coming out of it, and you're just like, oh, like what the, what is this? This place is awesome. I don't know. I think the music, at your tasting room, attracts a certain type of clientele. You know what I mean? It's really funny because when people like we for the most part curate people that are into what we're doing for the most part, right? But every once in a while you get like some tourist or somebody who comes in and they open the door and the death metal is at volume 11, and you can always tell the look on their face when they first walk in. They're like, what have I done? Where am I? What is happening? So it's cool though, because you end up attracting not only your clients, but like people that want to work there, are into it. You know what I mean? And they enjoy the lifestyle. They enjoy the brand. Um, my head brewer doesn't like metal.
No,
he,
that's so
he
funny.
begrudgingly goes along with the flow. He's a good guy. But if we ever give him control of the stereo, it's it segues off. But that's okay.
So there are those craft beer nerds that have been coming to drink your beautiful haze, and have to put up with the metal playlist. What would be a typical metal playlist at Adroit Theory on
Oof,
any given day?
oof, oof, oof. Well, they're all fighting with each other, of course, to get their playlist played. But today, what is today? Monday, Black Tongue,
Fuck yeah.
and probably some of the new Necrot.
Yeah.
We're definitely into. Uada is pretty awesome, and you probably hear that quite a bit. We just did a beer with Pig Destroyer, so that has been in constant rotation, their new EP, and um, yeah, that definitely gets people running for the exits if they don't know what they're getting into.
I was definitely going to bring that up. I want to talk about this Pig Destroyer beer. Uh, Tell me about this, how this all came together. How exactly did you set up this collaborative brew in honor of their new EP?
Yeah, actually, it was really quite fortuitous because like the majority of the band lives within like 10 miles of the brewery, which was just so random. Like we had no idea. You know what I mean? Like we're just like, wait, what? You live where? Um, and they had come to. We have our like anniversary party, and Blake had come to that last year, so like he knew who we were, and we were friends with Albert, who was the editor of Decibel, and he kind of initiated an email, and the guys from the band, Scott and JR and whoever, we mailed them some beer, and it was like, hey, this is awesome, we should do something. But that was right when the pandemic was just in full blown
Mhm.
swing, because we were going to have a big concert in September. And, you know, it's like, oh, this all makes perfect sense. This is great. Oh, everything is shut down. So that part didn't come to fruition, but I'm hoping, you know, obviously in 2021, we can get that back on track. But, you know, they were like, hey, you know, this EP is coming out. They showed me the artwork and I was like, sweet, will you give me, you know, carte blanche to do what I want, you know, pay homage to the band. You know, there's all these references in the artwork, but, you know, the idea of like a decapitated, you know, cattle head was like the impetus. And I'm like, yes, let's do this. They told me you know, we could do whatever we wanted on the beer, but they were thinking something, you know, like a dry, roasty type stout. They originally were talking about maybe an Irish stout, and I talked them into doing like an imperial milk stout. So I think it turned out pretty nice. It wasn't as over the top as like that negation beer that you drank over the weekend, but I mean, it's a pretty big beer. It was a big beer.
Yes. I've heard great things about the Pig Destroyer one. Vox&Hops alumni Andrew Garrity got his hands on some and told me that it was incredible. I'm very interested in this whole, your anniversary party. You guys normally have gigs. Is that what happens? Is you have bands playing, and that's something that happens every year? Or was this year supposed to be special?
Well, yes. I mean, the first 3 years kind of sucked. I'll be honest with you; they were okay. But by the time we were in like the fourth year, like we were a little bit more serious. So we had actually some bands people have actually heard of come to play, but not this past year, but the year before. It was actually really cool because we actually had like a big tent, and we had Outer Heaven play, which was like a death metal band, and we ended up doing a collab with them. And we had Horrendous play, which is like old school death metal.
Yeah,
and
of course.
collabed with them, and it was awesome, and it was a good party. And then this past year, we had a bunch of awesome bands like Basilisk and Inter Arma played, and it was just great.
I love it.
Everyone had a great time. But the rub was our anniversary is in January. And we're not as cold as Montreal.
No.
But it's not pleasant weather for like a party, right? So it was a very risky thing to do. So last year, and by last year I mean like in January, it was our 6-year anniversary. So I was like, why don't we throw a half-year party for ourselves, and we'll call it the 6.66 year party. Right. And we calculated it, and it was going to be on September 14th. That was exactly 6.66 years into the. I was like, yes, this is great. This is great. What? COVID? What? So we had to put the pause on that. We're hoping to just pretend the date doesn't exist and relaunch it at some point, you know, in the spring. But that was the plan, was to throw a big party for ourselves and, you know, book some awesome bands and make just a big party for ourselves.
Which we have to celebrate ourselves. It's a big accomplishment to bring something off the ground and to make it a success. And not only that, but have just such great products. It's awesome. What I like is this. I got this Mexican lager. I want to talk about this because it's something that it's refreshing, and I'm very stoked that you guys make one like this, because a lot of the times I see these metal breweries and they don't make anything drinkable, you know, like crushable, that you can drink a bunch of them and not suffer. You know, just because it's metal doesn't mean it has to be over 10% all the time. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's funny because for the first 3 years we were in business, we did not make a beer below 7%. Like we just refused to. And so they all were like 10%. So like you'd come to the brewery and we'd have like 25 beers and the average was 10%, right? These people are sitting there just pounding these, and I'm just like, dude, like we should probably make something else that somebody can drink while they're sampling what we make, right? So it's funny, we literally 1 year ago and a couple months made our first like lager, you know, 4.5% beer. Like we just did that literally 5+ years into being a brewery. We'd never made anything like that. It was always imperial this and imperial that and triple this. You know, we worked very hard, and I think, I mean, you obviously haven't had that yet, but I mean, it is a nice, clean, crisp, 2-style beer, right? I mean, it's hard to get as excited as you do about like a big stout or something like that, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful, clean beer that you can just drink all day while
Which
you're
is
sampling our other stuff.
which is a craft in its own, because it can't always be about the show. It's got to be about something that just goes down nice and easy, and it's a beautiful product. I want to talk about your motto. I think it's beautiful. Consume life and drink art. Where did that come up? How did you come up with that? And tell me what that means for you.
Well, I wish I could take 100% credit for that. We actually had one of those crowdsourced type projects.
Really?
Where we had people come up with a slogan for us. It's actually how we came up with our original logo, as well, in our manifesto. But yeah, it was a collaborative effort, from hundreds of people. But that was what we settled on, and I love it. I love it to this day because it's. I think slogans are, they can be a little corny, right? So you have to be very careful about what you do. But I wanted one where I could use it like as a whole, like consume life, drink art sounds cool. And I think people get it, but you could also break it apart. And we oftentimes do. So like, for instance, on the glass I'm drinking under our name, it actually just says consume life, right? And some of our other artwork says drink art. And, it's a cool thing because it's all about, I think, the idea, like in the metal world, of like, that it's finite, right? And the mortality of what we're doing, that it has to be just, consumed, like you are using up your days in a positive way and trying to get the most out of them that you can. But on, and on the flip side, being like, don't just drink anything. Don't drink swill. Don't drink things that you're not passionate about. You know what I mean? It should be art in the glass, on the label, and in your body. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I kind of dig it.
I think it's super cool, and you're 100% right. It is very close to metal. Tell me about your metal journey. What would be you growing up? How did you end up becoming a metalhead who has subsequently opened a very cool metal-themed brewery?
All right, so you ready for like the doesn't fit the mold of what everybody else did?
Sure. I'm waiting for Metallica and then Slayer.
I didn't listen to metal until I was in my mid 30s.
No way.
No way.
What was it before that?
Oh God, all ridiculous nonsense everybody else is listening to.
What was the band? What was the band that triggered the change?
Oh, please, yeah. Well, it's funny. For me, it was, because I was born in the 70s, right? I grew up in the 80s, right? 90s were the generation that influenced me. So I was into like Nine Inch Nails, I was into Tool, and into those types of bands. And then some of that new metal stuff came out, and it was cool, like Rage, for instance. But, I quickly lost interest in it, and I moved into electronic music and that kind of stuff. But, I'm in my mid 30s, and you know how it is. You're just kind of like, ooh, 40 is on the horizon, And you know what it was? I heard Meshuggah, and I was like, what is this? It was Blood. And I was like, what is this? And then kind of like in my beer journey, you're like, yeah, that is cool. I need to, let me find some things similar to that. And then I started listening to like Dillinger Escape Plan and Gojira and some other bands. This is all in like about 2007 or so, 2008. And I was like, what am I missing? And then it was like, I've got to educate myself, because every time I'd listen to like Bloody Roots or one of those shows on XM, I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Black Sabbath, who's Black Sabbath? Like, I had to go back and like educate myself, like in reverse. So yeah, as with everything in life, with me at least, it was a little bit of a slippery slope. And, fast forward 13 years, it's like, wow. Yeah, so a little different maybe than everybody else.
That is a very different answer. You're 100% right about that. 2020 is a shitty year, but there's been a bunch of great metal releases. What would be your album of the year so far there, Mark?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, obviously we brewed 2 beers with some of these bands, but the Necrot Blood Offerings is ridiculous.
Very cool. Very cool. Something else that would be cool just came to my mind. an idea doing beer. A lot of people do these pairings, right? So this beer that we're drinking right here, what would be the perfect band pairing, album pairing for it? And that would be something cool to do. Like you pair like food and stuff. You should pair albums on your beer.
That's actually a really, really, that's actually a really good idea.
I think it is too.
What's funny about the pairings is like we don't get people's permission to do them, like the cheese people or the cigar people. We just feel like, hey, well, this is what we like, and we're just going to put it on our label. And nobody's been uncool about it. We've actually had people like ping us and be like, hey, I was at the store and I picked this beer up and I flipped it over and it was my cigar on the labels. Here's 5 cases of cigars. Yes.
Yes, it's all about that. Yes.
Well, I don't know. That's I have to give that some thought.
This is it's juicy. It's a sneaky. It has to be like an album that is sneakily heavier than it appears to be.
A Mastodon album.
Yeah. An older one though, yeah.
An older one, yes.
Not Crack the Sky. Crack the Sky before that was Blood Mountain. That would work. I think that's the right name. I could be wrong. Sorry about that. Very cool. I also want to talk about the fact you guys make IPAs, double IPAs, triple IPAs, pastry sours, now this lager. Do you care what the next big style is, and what do you think it is?
Oh gosh, I do wish I would know because I'd start practice making those beers now. But I really don't. At the end of the day, I just try to make beers that I'm interested in drinking personally, and I do look at the sales numbers, and obviously it's a business. We're trying to make money, but luckily we're at that point where it all basically sells itself out. But
which is amazing.
I do enjoy interesting things. Like when we first started the brewery, we did a lot more experimental things than we do now. Only because it's just we're not big, we're very, very small. But even when you get just even a little bit bigger, it's hard to completely just do something so wackadoodle that the people are just like, whoa. But this past December, we made a stout with squid ink.
Really?
And black currants and black pepper. And that was pretty weird. It was pretty awesome, but it was pretty weird. Like people were like, huh, that's really interesting, which is code word for like, huh. But, I don't know. I think, in terms of like mass popularity, I don't know. It's a hard one. I do think classic styles are becoming more popular. That's been going on for quite some time. I do think, classic West Coast style where it's actually has some bitterness to it. It's still aromatic like a New England, but it's clean, and has some bitterness to it is a thing. We've started making, some classic West Coast over the last year. And then hopefully, some, more experimental type stuff because we do like funky, weird things.
Squid ink. Where do you even get squid ink, Mark?
I had to special order it from Germany. Actually.
Really? Very cool.
Yeah, it came in little kilos. I didn't think it would make it through customs, to be honest with you.
Wow. What, you've done a bunch of collabs with bands. Normally when I ask these questions to brewers, they haven't actually done it. So you've done a bunch of them. What is a band that you haven't done it with yet that you would love to do it with, a dream band to do a beer collab with?
That is a very good question. Uada out of Portland would be the first on our list for real, because I'm definitely into that vibe. I saw them at the Philly Decibel Fest last year, and it was like yes. That's a good question. I have to give that some thought. Can I come back to that at the end of the
interview? Of course, no problem. I always like to wrap this up with the Hangover Cure. It probably doesn't happen to you very often because you're very controlled and precise and in charge of a business that brews 10 to 15% brews. But it happens to everyone every once in a while. What is your hangover cure, Mark?
So I am a professional, so I do try to prevent it from occurring. But you know, I mean, obviously the hair of the dog is you know your quickest and easiest way out of that. So we made a series of beers, they're fruited sour beers, right? But we specifically made them to be consumed with champagne, right? So it's basically just a mixer for champagne, right? So we actually on the bottom of the cans just say add champagne. Like, don't drink it by itself. It's designed for champagne.
It's genius.
And champagne solves all problems, in my opinion. So if I'm feeling, I mean, I probably shouldn't say that. First, I'll crack into an electrolyte to kind of rehydrate me and get things going again. But I swear to God, if I'm dying, you know what I mean, and I'm at brunch, I will be cracking into our Illusion of Safety series with a bottle of champagne and preferably a little Grand Marnier floater on top to really bring it together. But all that sugar with the carbonation works magic.
Wow. See, I've never heard that answer. I love that. When we were talking about big new styles, something popped into my mind, and it's just so not metal. I'm happy you guys don't do them, and if you do, I apologize. Is the smoothie beers, these slushy sour beers? I don't know if that's the rage in Virginia, but up here in Montreal, it's becoming quite the thing. What's your take on those? And are they metal?
Well, you know, anytime you're drinking a you know, like neon blue beer, you know, with an umbrella sticking out of the side of it, you know, I don't know. I think there's a time and place for everything because I don't know how hot. I've been to several parts of Canada. I haven't actually been to Montreal. It's been on my short list. But you know, like when it's hot, like it's really hot in Virginia. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think having a little, you know, Caribbean tropical, you know, slushy or whatever you want to call it, fruit smoothie is going to be the way to go. You know, within reason, I suppose. We have made some of those types of beers, but you know, it's all tongue in cheek. It's all tongue
Absolutely.
in cheek.
And it is fucking hot here in Montreal in the summer.
It's hot. Okay.
Oh, it's brutally hot. Next time you come through, Mark, we will hang out. I'll take you around. I'll show you all my favorite places. We'll drink some craft beer. We'll talk about life. We'll talk about metal. Thank you so much for taking the time, hanging out with me, drinking your amazing brews. This is just
I appreciate it.
So
You got to crack into
delicious.
that. You got to crack into that lager, though. I want to see you crack into that lager.
Sure thing.
And read the pairings on said lager
Sure thing.
because we I want to say I've caught grief about it, but you know, people bust our chops about our really fancy, you know, well-to-do pairings that we do on all of our beers. Well, this beer, which is a clean and simple beer, we went with much simpler pairings. What do we got for our pairings here?
Okay, I'm gonna read it out. It's on the side of the can. You got food. Taco Bell, fiery Doritos Locos Tacos. Cheese, Kraft American Single. And cigar, Dutch Masters.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me pour this out. Tell everyone about this beer and why you're so proud of it.
Yeah, well, again, we're not known for making these types of beers, so when you make one that actually doesn't suck, it's always, you know, it's a nice thing. So, I mean, it's a lager. It's clean,
Super clean,
crisp. This thing has aged 7.5 weeks before we, you know, put it in a can, and it's classic. It's two style. I mean, we're not rocking the boat. That is a down the hatch beer.
Delicious. Ooh, yes. On a multi bite, I love it. Super clean.
And I thought people would get a chuckle out of our pairings because it's not, you know, sous vide duck legs or whatever. I don't know what pairings are on that, but like
on this one, you got food, ghost chili pepper, beef deckle.
Oh, the deckle, man. The deckle's where it's at.
Cheese, Fiscalini bandage wrap cheddar. And cigar, Monte by Monte Cristo Jacopo, #2, square pressed.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Damn right, I love the artwork. It's
You like that?
It's
yeah. My mother does not like this artwork.
That means you're doing the right thing, Mark. Mark, thank you so much. We're going to keep hanging out we're going to keep hanging out, but not with all of you guys listening. I really appreciate it. Everyone, please go check out, support Adroit Theory out of Purcellville, Virginia. They are doing amazing things, and they're metal as fuck, so I love them. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, thank you all so much for listening right to the end. You know that I love and appreciate that. What a great chat with Mark. Adroit Theory makes some sick-ass brews, people. You should absolutely go and check them out. If you can get your hands on some, you should absolutely do that. They are simply out of this world. They're metal as fuck, and they're super, super delicious. After wrapping up this episode, Mark sent me an email with a bunch of other bands that he would love to do some collabs with, and I'm going to read that out to you right now. He would like to do some collabs with Slayer. He says, duh. Metallica, Behemoth, Carcass, Cannibal Corpse, The Melvins, and Killing Joke. And I agree with those. Those are all great people to do collabs with, but don't forget Cryptopsy, because I'd be super stoked about that as well. If you enjoyed this Vox and Hops episode, you should absolutely go and subscribe to it on the podcast platform of your choice, because there are over 190 Vox and Hops episodes just like this one that you can go back and check out. Vox and Hops is brought to you by Sound Talent Media. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I am planning to relax and spend some time with my family and just kick it and enjoy life, metal, and craft beer on my own. I'll be back next week with 3 episodes. My 200th episode will be dropping on Tuesday, and I have 2 more episodes coming up on Thursday and Friday. But until then, remember to enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.